Welcome. Palace Intrigue from London to DC highlights this week's The Casser-Jayne Show. When joining me at my table is my partner in politics, former White House correspondent Matthew Cooper, and British royal expert and author of Imagining Diana, Diane Clehane. Pour yourselves a cup of tea and have a crumpet or two. We begin with my conversation with Matthew Cooper in Washington, D.C., and then it's a trip to London with Diane Clehane. Here we go. Good morning, Matthew.
Good morning, Halli.
Matthew, I didn't sleep well last night. I think it's because of that interview with Lev Parnas. It was stunning to me. Was it stunning to you?
My capacity for being stunned is not what it was. But it was pretty wild. You're talking about the interview with Rachel Maddow.
Yeah. This morning.
And Lev Parnas, for those who don't remember, former aide, co-worker with Rudy Giuliani, now turned government witness, and he's talking.
Okay, and I want to talk about that because the Republicans are going to say, this guy's under indictment, he's talking and he's lying to save his whatever. I treat him with skepticism, maybe all true. I think the most interesting take on that is the fact that, before we get into what he said, the guy felt he had to buy insurance for his life. That's why he's talking. He doesn't want to wind up hanging from a rope or eating some kind of stuff with some bad plutonium in it. So there is that too. And another thing I want to bring up before we get into the bones of this thing is I did not realize this, or maybe forgot, that John Dow, who was Trump's attorney, was Parnas's original attorney. Thought we ought to put that on the table.
Right.
So
Well, a lot to go over here.
Yeah. Okay. So let's start. You talk about what you heard, what you found interesting about all of this.
Well, just to back it up a second here. Parnas was working with Rudy Giuliani until really recently on this whole effort of Giuliani's and the president's to try to get the Ukrainian government to launched an investigation into Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden having been on the board of a Ukrainian gas company, and the Trumps charging that was an act of corruption, and that they were and so they were very, very hot to get the Ukrainians to investigate. Now, Trump has claimed that he never wanted to have a quid pro quo of offering to threatening to hold up aid to the Ukrainians unless they cooperated. But Parnas tells a very different story, as do, frankly, what else we knew to this point. He says that there was a very, very active effort on his part, on Rudy Giuliani's part, even suggesting that the Attorney General, Bill Barr, was part of it, to get the Ukrainians to, crack down on the Bidens, and that he also suggests the vice president was in on it. So it's a big and complex set of charges. But because he worked for Giuliani until quite recently, he's, it's attracting a lot of interest. And, that interview he gave to Rachel Maddow, he also did another one with the New York Times. It's
CNN.
And CNN. It's raising a lot of alarms. Of course, it's backed up also by a lot of documents that he turned over to the House
and the testimony that the House already had.
And the testimony that the House already had. It's
damning.
It's pretty damning. In some places there's his claim, and we don't seem to have documentation that adds to it. For instance, he's saying that, Pence canceled his visit to the inauguration of the new Ukrainian president because of this. that he carried messages specifically demanding that the Bidens be investigated. We have that as an assertion from Parnas, there's no documentary proof of it. But nevertheless, it's very damning. It's very concerning. It's obviously something the Democrats are going to want to bring up in the upcoming impeachment trial. And
well, let's talk about this. Let's talk about the let me bring in two other names that I think are important to all of this, and that's Victoria Tensing and Joe DeGeneva. Now, if you're not real big groupies of politics, and if you don't watch Fox News, you may not know who they are, but they have been around forever. They went after Clinton. What Democrat don't they go after? And they're very much involved in this too. And I just wanted to throw that out.
Yes.
Because that tells me how deep into the Republican system this thing is going. This is truly, you can't be, surprised when you bring up, the vice president or Barr,
and a couple of big super PAC fundraisers.
Right.
Yeah.
Because these guys are big. These aren't small potatoes. These aren't third world, little guys. So that says a lot too. And the other person I want to bring up is, what did McConnell know and when did he know it too? And of course there's Pompeo. I don't think his name was brought up. But all of that being said, Matt, so much of it is corroborated by other witnesses, you're going to have to flesh it out. You're going to have to do a lot of homework. But the response by the Republicans, what? I mean, Susan Collins, talk about that.
Well, is she right? Did she respond since last night?
Well, no. I mean, she said, well, if they had all this and they knew about this, this is ridiculous. This is just a game. And no, we don't have to listen to this. This should have come out before. Of course, it couldn't come out before because it was under, SD&Y, and they had all the goods and they weren't going to release it. And she's no idiot.
Yeah, I don't think, look, the Republicans will claim that the Democrats, should have investigated this earlier, which isn't really a fair charge. They're going to say that the guy's facing indictment, and he'll say, he is indicted. They're going to say he's, he'll say anything to try to avoid going to jail, so that he can't be trusted.
So let me tell you who he reminds me of.
John Dean.
No, Michael Cohen.
Right.
The same. I loved the guy, the same schnook.
Yeah. Well, and the Republicans will say that too. They'll say, well, Michael Cohen's in jail. He changed his tune about Trump. He's just like Avenatti. He can't be trusted. He's another.
But there's something sad about that. There's something, I want to take it to a different place than that. No matter what Republicans say, Trump knows who to go to. Trump knows who he can buy. Trump knows who he can play. Trump knows who will be a lackey for him. That is a Don. A good Don always knows who will go to the mat for him. And that's who these guys like Michael Cohen and Lev Parnas are. I needed to say that. It's a novel. It's a movie. He's typecasting.
Right. Well, obviously he's wrong, right? Because Cohen and Parnas weren't reliable.
It's always that way. Because at the end, somebody gets, they always get caught. If it's 30 years, 40 years in, sooner or later, somebody is going to crack. Trump has had the balls up in the air for a very long time, Matt.
Yeah. Look, it all certainly, there's just a ton of evidence that they wanted the Bidens investigated, and that it was political, and that, and there wasn't just the investigation. They wanted a public announcement that there was an investigation. It wouldn't have been enough just to investigate them quietly, and see what you find. Look, at this point, there's really no doubt that that's what the president wanted.
And that's what the president
Giuliani was trying to facilitate, and that. Yeah, and look, there were all kinds of crazy cul-de-sacs. There was the release of these crazy text messages that Parnas had with this Republican
Robert Hyde.
Right, guy who's running for Congress in Connecticut who was texting back that, he was keeping an eye on the U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, who was fired because of her non-cooperation with this scheme to get the Bidens. Almost like he was tailing her like a gumshoe, and Parnas said he didn't take the guy's menacing tone seriously because he was a drunk.
It's like tentacles out there. Devin Nunes, of course, accused months ago of having connections with this guy and saying, I don't remember. If
I don't know him. I never met him.
Last night, he was, I know who he is. I mean, this is so filthy, so dirty. And I want to say something, 2 other things, or 3 or 4 or 7,000. Who am I kidding? My head is just swarming with this stuff. But this is about stalking Ambassador Yovanovitch. They stalked her. I mean, maybe they were going to take her out. I don't know. I do know this.
I mean,
it's a crime to stalk. High crimes and misdemeanors.
I mean, the Ukrainians said that they're not going to investigate the way this Republican operative was
acting,
potentially tailing a U.S. ambassador, but
which
the
is
State
against
Department,
the law. Which is against
the
law.
State Department has evinced no interest in it.
Can I just say one other thing on that, what you just brought up? Because I think it's when Ukraine is less corrupt than the United States, we are in deep caca.
Well, I won't disagree with you.
So here we are. Here's where we have. Oh, by the way, I loved his little. He was wearing an American flag on his lapel, Mr. Parnas. It takes us to what
we
happened.
should say Parnas is a Soviet-born American citizen.
So is Michael Cohen.
Right.
Welcome. That's who they keep going to. And by the way, Burisma, which is the company that young Biden was working for, also was hacked. We found out last week. And then Putin yesterday pulled a big one, which, we might go into that in more depth, but basically what Putin did was like declare I'm in charge and everybody else resigned.
Right.
Forever and a day. Okay. What else is new? This is Russia. But let's take all of this conversation to the historical day yesterday, where the articles of impeachment were somberly walked over to the Senate and given to the Senate, and we are now at a trial. So, Matthew, with everything we have learned now, what do you think? Are they going to have witnesses? Do the Republicans cave? Do the Republicans realize, oh my God, what a cover-up? What do you see happening here?
I'd just be guessing. I think they probably will have a couple of witnesses. I'm not sure who they're going to be. I don't doubt it'll be. I mean, I think they'll find a way not to take Parnas. They could do Bolton. But I think there's enough support that there's going to be somebody who's going to testify. Now, whether that testimony is ever released publicly, I don't know. But I think Pelosi may have gotten what she wanted, which was to focus on the corruption of the trial on the Senate and to pressure them into doing some witnesses. And I think for those folks who were saying she should have rushed it over or she should have held out another 3 months, I think she did okay.
I think she did great. And
because last week you were saying she should just
I said she should
keep holding it up.
Not all of it. I said she should hold back one.
Right.
One. But that's before they knew what was in this Les Parnas stuff, and the timing of it was pretty, orchestrated. You could go that far if you wanted to.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
I mean, they got Parnas said they had to get stuff in under the deadline.
Right. So
it would be stuff that could get sent over to the Senate.
Exactly. So Republicans are now accusing the Democrats of doing what they've always been so good at, which I find amusing, which is rolling out the story. And so they keep control over it. And, there's more to come. There's clearly more to come. once she knew she had this, she didn't have to hold the second article back. But I want to go back to how this whole impeachment trial thing is going down. I mean, something that we have to discuss in terms of this is the outrageous limits on the press Mr. McConnell has put in. It's a disgrace. It is truly a disgrace. I mean, they are trying to cover this up and keep this off the airwaves and do it behind closed doors and get it over with this, that, and the other thing. And the only thing the Les Parnas interview, not the only thing, maybe what it did was, now he can't quite get away with what he thought he needed to get away with because it is too big. The Republican response has either been basically silence or the so-called press secretary of Trump, by the way, paid for by the people, who's never given a true press conference, is like, this is nothing. Isn't that what her thing was this morning? This is nothing. This is just a bad guy. And,
she's useless.
But isn't this concerning to you, this limits on the press?
Of course. I mean, look, this is, trials we're not supposed to have secret trials in the United States. This is the People's Congress and the People's Senate, and there's no reason, there's no reason this shouldn't be held in the open unless there was some national security reason, and there doesn't seem to be. So, I think it's clearly an attempt at covering it up and trying to limit the attention that this trial gets.
It's not getting enough press about how the press is being silenced, by the way. You see it on Twitter, but everywhere else it's not. And, I've learned you can't just go on Twitter because Twitter is is the amped up version of people who are involved in politics.
Yeah.
And so we need to go other places. When you go other places, there's virtually no conversation about it. And, I'm hoping our listeners understand that this is this is something that should make you outraged totally, as if everything else isn't an outrage right now because we're living in the world of outrage.
Yes. This was not their attitude about the Benghazi hearings.
No, exactly. So the thought crossed my mind, Matt, the other day, or yesterday. It went like this. Trump is caught. He is knee deep in this. The vice president is involved. Barr is involved. Pompeo is involved. They're all involved. I mean, wherever you go, they're all involved. I mean, this is an orchestrated, corrupt Republican Party. And in that Republican Party, there are a lot of people who just go along with the program because they're there to earn for power and for money. And they bet their horse on Trump. So at what point, since all of this now has been incredibly exposed, does somebody somewhere say, I could be the hero? I could be the next Paul Revere. Who's going to do that? Is anybody going to do that? Is there one person? Because you could save the entire country and Republican Party if you're so partisan, if you're the person who finally says, enough.
Well, we've talked about this before. I think if you're playing it rationally and thinking about your future in the Republican Party, you look at Jeff Flake, who criticized the president. Yeah, that's why he's not there.
No, it has to be. But this is different now.
But I think Flake is the cautionary tale. He couldn't win re-election. He had to leave.
You don't have to win re-election. You may lose your seat, but if you are a hero of that sort, career that's bigger, bolder, grander, more rewarding financially, come on.
I don't think that's how they see it.
Well, then they're really stupid, aren't they? There's not a smart one in the bunch. Never mind Patriot.
I just think they're all mindful about their political future in the Republican Party. I think they look at Justin Amash, and he did what you said, and he's not a Republican anymore, and he's probably not going to be in Congress, in 14 months. So
he was a libertarian. He was. Yeah, it has to be somebody within the rank and file who finally just goes, wait a second,
you say it has to be. It won't be.
Well, I don't. Okay, so that's where you are. You're saying no, they're not going to break. This is just going to go on.
Someone may push and push on the witness front a bit, and maybe somebody will vote for impeaching him. But they didn't in the House, and I think it's fair bet that they won't in the Senate.
Which takes me to the sobering thought that this is the end of democracy as we know it. And I'm not being crazy. I'm being very sincere about this. There is no rule of law if this guy is allowed. When we see this so clearly, I mean, this Nixon, this is worse than Nixon. You there?
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
What?
Yes, I agree.
Okay. So, I mean, this is in every way, shape, and form, we are talking about a man who absolutely has taken the Republic and everything that we stand for and the Constitution and upended it. And everybody on his team is going along with it. And if it is allowed to happen, it's over. There's no separation of power. It's over. That's how critical a time I think we are at. And somehow I actually don't think the Dems are doing a good enough job on making that case, believe it or not. Yeah, they're not shouting from the rooftops. I mean, this is truly a fight for democracy at this point. That's how I feel. And we both know that I'm overamped over you.
Right. No,
but I don't think it's an unfair thing to say or a discussion to have here. I do think this is critical mass. Before today, Matt, we didn't have the goods. This guy really spilled it. This really corroborates the whole story. That can't be dismissed. It can be played with, but it can't be dismissed. Because every lawyer will tell you that. This is fact.
Yeah.
All right. So
yeah. I agree with you that the story is pretty complete, and Trump was using the power of his office to help his political campaign. He was essentially soliciting foreign contributions, holding up, the execution of laws, which he signed, that said Ukraine should get this money, purely for his own political purposes. So, I don't have any doubt there's a crime here.
Okay. There's a crime, but it's worse than a crime because it's a crime against the state, the nation, and everything the nation stands for. And I'm simply saying that if we don't do something here, and because he's emboldened, he did this the day after the Mueller report did not exonerate him. He was emboldened by that. And then here we are. If he gets away with this and he gets
oh, yeah.
I mean,
I totally agree with that.
This is why sure. I'm right. So I'm simply saying to you, we're in an oh shit moment. Okay. I can't say it any more complete than that. And I'm like praying that some Republican, grows some and fixes it. And that's it.
Well, maybe it'll be like Central America. The junta will pass. After the junta,
We're there. It's very scary. We're there. Before we close, because we don't have a lot of time today, because we did tick up the Royals, and
I can't wait to hear your segment on that.
Diane is terrific. We'll run that right after this, folks. You're just going to love Diane Clehane. She knows it all. She knows it all.
I love it.
I mean, it's a great combo. So, but I want to talk about the debate very, very quickly.
Yeah. And the after debate.
And the after debate. And, but I want to start with saying bye-bye to Cory Booker. I know you're upset.
I just watched Street Fight again, which if you've never seen it, it's the documentary about his 2002 race. It's amazing. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So I want to begin with how the debate began and how it ended. And it's very quick with old Joe hopped on stage. Did you notice his hop on stage?
Yeah.
Right? Deliberate hop on stage. I'm young, I'm virile, I can make a move. Right. And then he proceeded to age right before our eyes for the next 2 hours. It was the hoppy moment, and it was all downhill.
He looked a little wan.
He did not look good the other night again, and sometimes he's good and sometimes he's not good. This is not good. They need to, whoever does his makeup needs to be consistent in how they do his makeup, and his energy level needs to be consistent. My other thing I want to say is, why is Steyer there? Because I can't figure it out. Just can't.
Well, these dopey criteria that the DNC
it's bizarre. Yeah. It's just bizarre. He doesn't, but he's not even a man with a message. He's not even a man with a message. So that's weird too. And he wears a strange tie.
Well, he's got a message. It's just not. Anyway, he's not a great messenger for it.
Right. I mean, it's
whatever.
like go away and stop it, and do what you have to do.
I mean, without Booker, without Yang, and without Booker, it's very it's duller.
Yes, it's very. I agree. Particularly without Yang, he's adorable. Amy, she's brilliant, but she's going nowhere.
I thought we would see a big surge in January.
Yeah, not going to happen. No. And she's hanging there hoping to get vice president. And then you have Warren, Sanders, and the crazy. I mean, what? Talk. You talk. You got a minute or two.
Wait, you mean Sanders and Warren's?
Dust up.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, she claims that he said a woman can't get elected, and he says he didn't say it, and that came up at the debate. And then after the debate was over, the cameras and then later a microphone caught her coming up to him and saying, I think you just called me a liar on national TV. And he said, what? And she said, I think you just called me a liar on national TV. I don't, you lied about me. Let's not do this here.
Hey, good. Very good. Very good.
I don't know. I thought, Warren tried to turn it into a big moment and saying like, oh, how great, the women on stage have done in their elections. Come on. Warren beating Scott Brown was an accomplishment. She cleared the Democratic field in 2012 for her Senate race, but, it is Massachusetts. I mean, a Democrat winning in a presidential year is not,
right, no big deal.
It's not exactly an upset.
Well, here's what I want to say is I think it hurted her more than it did him, and I think it was her last-ditch effort because she saw the handwriting.
No, I agree. I think
the handwriting. It was a bad move on her part. She, when all else fails, don't go with the feminine thing. Just don't do it. It's a cheap shot. But what I don't like about it is how everybody wanted to gin it up, and everybody was trying to gin it up, and they shouldn't. But worse.
Yeah. Also,
what?
I mean, it's obviously sexist to say that a woman shouldn't be president or a woman's not capable of being president. But to speculate that a woman would have a hard time getting elected president or wouldn't get elected, to me, that is not, I don't think it's true.
Well, Hillary got 3 million more votes.
Right. I don't think it's true, but I don't think that, I mean, look, if you believe that the country isn't ready to elect a gay man president, that doesn't make you anti-gay. That's your take on the country's, that's your take on the rest of your countrymen.
Right. Right. I just don't think it was a smart move on her part.
I mean, it's a little bit of a bank shot. It's not like Bernie said, oh, hey, you're a dame, you can't be president.
That's it, and so, but it tells you what her inside polls are telling her, and they're not pretty, and she's going for broke here.
Yeah, I mean, I think Bernie's, I think he's campaigning very well. I think he's pretty good in these debates.
Listen, he did himself a favor, though, and he did the Democratic Party a favor for the first time. He made that statement at the end saying, if I don't win, I will support the nominee, which, I hope he'll do that and get his crazy Bernie bots to do that too, which they didn't last time. I think that's important. We have to go, but before we do, the one thing that I did want to bring up about the debate was the fact that impeachment and Trump didn't make it to the forefront of the debate. Didn't even, the name Trump, I don't know, did it come into the...
No, I think bad questioning.
That was really stupid.
They just make them play the Medicare for All tape over again, which is, the differences between the Democrats on these issues are not that huge.
Right.
Especially compared to their differences with Trump. So I think it was particularly badly done debate by CNN. And
I totally agree. And I also think somebody better figure out, they better get into personality and showing the best of these people in the debate. The next people who have control need to bring out the humor, the humanity of these candidates, because that in the end is what people are going to be voting for. And so far they're all coming off as dullards and pedantic and and all that jazz. So I think, in these times, you need to bring out a little personality. Who are these people really? What would you like
I think they've done
a really bad job running these debates.
And I think the candidates themselves have not done well with that.
That what? I didn't hear that.
Yeah, bringing out their own personality.
Yeah. Well,
But that's a topic for another day.
That's a topic for their day.
Oh,
okay.
All right. I'm going to listen to your royal segment. I can't wait.
It's terrific. Hey, good night, George.
All right. Good night, Tracy. Could be.
Oh, yeah, we didn't do okay, could be. We got our could be in. All right, darling. You were listening to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show. The Halli Casser-Jayne Show posts new podcasts Wednesdays, 3 p.m. Eastern at HalliCasserJayne.com, and it's available wherever you listen to your podcasts. Find us on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, on all your favorite apps. You'll find the podcast on your Alexa device, too. Just say The Halli Casser-Jayne Show. Oh, and come play with me on Twitter at The Halli CJ Show. Diane Clehane is a leading authority on modern celebrity and royalty. She is a New York Times bestselling author and award-winning journalist who has written for Newsweek, Vanity Fair, People, Forbes, Variety, and many other national publications for more than 2 decades. People.com praised her first novel, Imagining Diana, published in August 2017, as one of the best new books on Princess Diana and her sons. Diane is the Royals editor for Best Life, a digital lifestyle magazine whose content frequently appears on MSN. She's written hundreds of stories about the British royal family and has appeared on The Today Show, CNN, NBC News, CBS News, Access Hollywood, and many other outlets to offer her insights into the royals. Let's talk with Diane Clehane. Well, I can't help myself, Diane. Cheerio.
Cheerio. How are you?
I'm terrific, darling. How are you? I know you've had a hell of a week. I've been watching you all over the world talking away. It's nice to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Well, what a royal mess. That's my word on it. But before we get into the weeds, I've got to. Why do you think we Americans are so enthralled by all things royal? I mean, even before Meghan Markle joined the family, what's going on here?
Sure. It's something that I get asked a lot, and I can only really point to my own sort of experience, and that is that, when Princess Diana came on the scene, I was the same age. My name is similar, obviously, and, only your mother could draw comparisons between a 6-foot-tall blonde British aristocrat who was going to marry into the royal family and a 5'3" brunette Irish woman, American of Irish descent, no less. So, she was a very fascinating figure to me. I think that she was both an aspirational and accessible figure. I sort of transferred all my interest sort of in celebrity to her, and then she became this sort of icon of reinvention, of, sort of self-fulfillment, female empowerment, overcoming, all these obstacles. And I think we've always been fascinated with royals, obviously, because we don't have that. And I think the pomp, circumstance, mystery, all the majesty, nobody does all that stuff better with the Brits when they have the big cathedrals and, the grand ceremony. But I think it was Diana that really contemporized the whole concept of monarchy and, a modern princess, this sort of blonde Amazonian, striding through, looking great but yet being this mother and this woman that had to sort of overcome, being married to someone who didn't love her. I think this sort of identification that most women had with Diana has just continued. Certainly when she died, then we felt for her sons, and then they grew up, and then there was Kate, and that's sort of, I think, when it sort of kicked in. And then, of course, it's now to the point where, I've been talking on television and to folks like you for a straight week, and I've been told by, everybody, this is all people want to talk about. My husband thinks it's absurd, of course, but, there are a fair number of men that are interested, I would say. I just did 2 talks at the Greenwich Library last Saturday, and they were sellouts, and there were about, I would say, 25% of men there, maybe dragged by their, female companion or wife or mother, who knows, but I think it's because it's a real-life soap opera playing out in real time.
I said it's a Hallmark movie if ever there was one. And I will tell you this, It's so nice not to be talking about the T word. I think there's part of that at this point too.
Sure.
Listen,
absolutely.
I find
I mean,
go ahead.
No, when I post all my pieces on social media, people are like, "Oh, thanks. This is something else we can think about, talk about." So, it definitely plays into that
it's
right now.
It's a nice distraction for sure. Listen, I find the story at once sizzling, but I also find it extraordinarily sad. Why, in your opinion, did Meghan and Harry go nuclear when they did? They didn't, remember what I wrote on Facebook? Because I said they did not have to leave with rage. They could have left with dignity. What happened?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's a confluence of events, I think, that, just made this thing, as you say, go nuclear. Harry has been unhappy for a really long time. I think that Harry's been something of a lost soul most of his life, by his own admission. When he was out of the Army, he sort of found himself sort of at loose ends. And I think, we had many years where we saw him as sort of the third wheel with William and Kate. So he was looking for someone. Like so many men, we were joking the other day, I was saying to someone that asked me a similar question. He was going out with somebody for 7 years, and then all of a sudden this one comes along. I mean, we all know with men, a lot of it is timing. They'll go out with someone forever, and the next person that comes along, okay, this is the right time, and here we go. But with Meghan, I think he saw in Meghan the qualities that he has sort of elevated in his mind to all the things that his mother had. She was philanthropic, she was caring, she was outspoken, a bit of a rebel, all that kind of thing. And perhaps, the attraction that she did not fit the mold. I mean, Harry has been the family rebel, although he's been very much, obviously his military service to the country, his loyalty to his grandmother up to this point, is legendary and well known. But I think the two of them were sort of a combustible combination. And of course, Meghan, there's all kinds of speculation. I mean, obviously, we know that fame and stardom was obviously something that she wanted. This whole idea where she said, "Oh, I didn't really know that much about him, and all I wanted to know was, is he kind?" I mean, I think that was disingenuous at best. But I think that when she got in there, I think she thought she was going to be able to make some changes to an institution that is thousands and thousands of years old and changes at a glacial pace. And it wasn't happening fast enough for her liking. Also, I think she felt, and this has been confirmed by a lot of other people, she's not a woman that was used to not being able to speak out. So the idea of going to all these places, dressed up with the fascinator and doing sort of her royal bit, it wasn't enough for her. So I don't necessarily agree with people that think, she planned this all along. I think it would be, pretty amazing if someone could pull that off. But I think that Harry's dissatisfaction with his life and her saying, you know what, this really isn't working for me, which is allegedly what happened over the Christmas break, is what precipitated this crisis.
Now, see, I got to interject here. I got to interject because I've been, you think. First of all, what they did, I thought, was emotional, not smart. Not that their idea.
Well, I mean, it was really emotional blackmail too.
Exactly.
I mean, the idea that they had this, this website, which was created by the same people that did her TIG website, which people just talk about like it was this, reinventing the wheel. I don't really see it. I mean, it's lovely, beautifully done, but so what? But the idea that they had been planning this for a really long time, not planning to ambush the Queen, but planning to do something else. People forget, early in the marriage, shortly after the wedding, they went to the Queen and said, we want to establish our own sort of brand of philanthropy. And she put the kibosh on it. So, that didn't stop them. And then, these little sort of trickling things that were happening. The ITV interview was the writing on the wall. That was not something that was just going to go away. It's very similar to what Diana did when she did her Panorama interview where she said, there were 3 of us in this marriage and maybe Charles shouldn't be king. But she was already cast out at that point. I think that Harry had every intention of trying to speak to his grandmother. There are news reports that he tried to talk to her, but this was all poised and ready to go. So when the Queen said, look, I'm willing to sit down with you and talk about this, which in and of itself is extraordinary, but you have to talk to Charles first, they said, nah, we're not going to do this. There's all kinds of reports as to why. They thought maybe it would leak out.
Angry.
I mean,
there was anger at the core
I think it was, too. I think it was, and the idea that this Tom Bradby, who's become something of a mouthpiece for them, the ITV reporter that basically let this documentary become this, airing of grievances, he went on television and said, last weekend, if they don't get what they want, there's the potential for a tell-all interview and it's not going to be pretty. I mean, if that's not emotional blackmail, I don't know what is.
That is for sure. Also, let's talk about her because I think part of this was she had no idea in one sense that she was going to feel so badly about being number 2. Or number 3, or number 4, or number 10.
He's number 6. So,
right, so she's standing behind Kate. She's standing behind Will's.
Mm-hmm.
This is a woman who wants to be number 1. I think that's a big part of it. She couldn't be that. She had to make it her own. But is this fair? Everybody is blaming her, but Harry. Talk about Harry.
Yeah.
And he's complicit.
It's not all her.
Of course
as
not.
As I said, it's not all her. I think that, to your point, I mean, she wanted this to be sort of, and obviously saw it as a step up. I mean, Suits was, a cable show that got, 2 million people at best. And, she had really leveraged her celebrity in terms of, doing the right things, sort of being attached to certain charitable causes, getting visibility that way. But I don't see her ever breaking, if she had not married Harry, I don't think we'd see her, walking down the carpet, at the Academy Awards. I mean, we're not talking about Grace Kelly here, who gave up an Oscar-winning career.
Yeah.
However, Harry was somebody, as I just said, that was looking for a way out. I think that he thought at least that, this could work now. I'm going to be able to sort of do my own thing within the confines of the royal machine. She, on the other hand, I think did not want to be an ensemble player in as much as she didn't want to be silenced. I mean, being a member of the royal family, they are all supporting characters there to support one person, the monarch. That is the person who is the star. If you talk to people in the UK, they have a completely different frame of reference. It's the Queen, she's it, and all the other sort of satellites are people around her. And, we think we love Kate. I mean, I adore Kate. I think she's more royal than the royals. I think Prince William seems like a lovely person who manages to have the same, feelings. He hates the press just as much as Harry, William. I mean, they both feel that way. But William has been able to turn it around, compartmentalize it. And he said very famously in this documentary they did when the 20th anniversary of her death came up, he said, I've seen you can't let them in that far because then you can't get them back out. I think what the mistake that Harry and Meghan made almost right out of the gate is they felt like they could stage manage this to an extent that really angered people in Britain. I mean, the idea of, not doing the traditional walk to church with your child when you're baptizing them. I mean, what real harm is that?
Really? Yeah.
Playing like this silly game about we're not going to tell you, who the doctor is. We're not going to use the Queen's team. Oh, they're going to put a story out. It's going to be an all-female team. Oh, maybe she'll have a home birth. I mean, this is not, the pages of Us Weekly. This is supposed to be the monarchy, and the Brits are very heavily invested in their, royal family. They want to celebrate this. These people have a tremendous sense of national pride over this being part of their heritage. So, when they felt like they were getting sort of Harry and Meghan were thumbing their noses at them, it was completely unnecessary. I mean, but that's the other thing too. I mean, they're talking all about privacy. What the heck happened to that? Privacy. The people that want privacy, they're going about it a very interesting way. I mean, Will and Kate never talk about privacy, and they're just doing their thing, and nobody bothers them. People forget Kate Middleton was chased down the street in her little car exactly like Diana.
Well,
exactly like Diana.
The difference is,
and nobody ever said a word. Meghan has always been kept at an arm's length from the media. So this idea that she would possibly, she could be compared to Diana, I think poor Harry has sort of conflated their stories in his head. And I think also in a lot of ways he's trying to rewrite that unhappy ending by, taking charge of his own family, wanting to protect his wife and child, perhaps in the way he didn't think that he or his mother was protected. And I get that. And I think that's a really real possibility.
And for that reason, I'm going to say, if you play that, then I have to say Meghan's playing him on that. He's vulnerable there.
He's quite vulnerable, but I think he really loves her. So
for now, for now, I don't know. I don't see this ending right. I just don't. I mean, I don't. Whatever. I also want to say that Will and Kate wear their royalty magnificently.
I mean, they are. I did a story for Best Life a few weeks ago before all of this hit the fan, which was that Kate is really the secret weapon of the royals.
Yeah.
I mean, they are so lucky to have her because she is from the very day that she walked down that aisle to marry him. If you remember, that wedding, she was more royal than the royals.
Right.
The woman never, as the Brits like to say, I love the expression, never puts a foot wrong. She doesn't. I mean, she's a lovely person by all accounts. You don't hear a word about her, being snarky or, a diva or anything. She obviously has a lovely family. Her parents seem like, very nice, grounded people. They've not cashed in on any of this. I mean, she had this brother. Her mother has this brother who's a bit of a loose cannon, but that's sort of not even sort of an issue.
Yeah, they've contained it all. It's pretty wonderful.
Yeah,
I've got to move on. Yeah, I've got to move on, but I've got a few more things with you, and I don't have any time, and I love talking to you.
Sure.
You'll have to come back and be our royals.
Can't stop talking about this
I mean,
stuff.
it's amazing stuff, but I'm going to throw the word out racism just quickly. Because I don't think that played a whole lot in this. I mean, it's there. It's always there. It was there for Obama. It's there for Oprah. They managed to get around it and work their way. And I kind of resent them pulling that off on that. I wondered very quickly what you thought about that.
Well, I mean, I think it's hard as a woman who's grown up, in the United States, a white woman. It's very hard for me to say, outright it's not a factor. I spent time in the UK this summer. I can tell you that being an American is a much bigger issue for most Brits than her being biracial. I mean, Britain is more diverse, but I mean, when you talk to British citizens, I think it's more, and I really believe this because I have this in my own experience, the Brits don't like Americans involved in their royalty.
Yeah.
And I think it's more a factor that she was an American over the fact that she was biracial. But I'm sure, she gets death threats. She has gotten death threats from the beginning, and I'm sure some of that is racially motivated. So I wouldn't discount it completely.
I won't discount it, but I don't think it's key. And I think it's interesting how it's played in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
Queen. How do you think she's handled this? I love this woman. Can I just tell you? I've always loved this woman. But I thought also, if you really read what they wrote and the Meghan and Harry and his family, I just kept getting stuck on that.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Well, I mean, that was a 153-word statement that mentioned family 9 times, and it said a great deal. I think that she had 2 things that she had to accomplish. One, she had to tell people, the monarchy is not in crisis. And secondly, she was taking back the control of her family because, I mean, I just wrote a Newsweek cover story where they said, has she lost control of her family? And, between Andrew and this mess, it looks like people are just doing whatever they want. So I think she had no choice, frankly. I mean, she can't tell these people, no, you can't go live in Canada. I think she is trying to hold the family together. I think they want to keep the door open for Harry because life is long and we don't know how this is going to happen. So I think it was extraordinary that she voiced her regret. I mean, I think in that statement when she said, although we would have liked to have them stay as full-time royals, that tells me that there was probably a last-minute pitch at this meeting, laying out for him, look, these are the things you're giving up. This is the responsibility you were born into. But I think I've heard from a lot of sources, he's quite torn. Not torn about, protecting his wife and family. He's made that decision. But what it's going to cost him. Yeah. I don't think Harry living in L.A., which is ultimately where we're going with this. When they got married, I said within 5 years they'd move to L.A., and I still believe that that's true. I think that the novelty of that's going to wear off pretty quick. And he's going to, turn into Mr. Meghan Markle. It's a distinct possibility, and that would be a heartbreak. And I think that's why William and Charles and the Queen are trying so desperately to try to come up with something. They deeply care about him, and I think there's a lot of worry, there's a lot of concern about what's going to be in the future.
So, and I agree with you on that. And so I'm curious as to whether they give up Frogmore. They have to give up they've agreed to give up the money, or that's their choice. Whether what happens with guarding them. If I were a Brit, I'd say, you don't get Frogmore. You don't get anything. This is the way you're going. Goodbye and good luck. Have a nice time. See ya. What do you think?
It's incredible.
Yeah. So where do we go, right?
Well, I mean, the website was, I think, again, very disingenuous, making this big sort of deal about giving up the sovereign grant. The sovereign grant is comprised of only 5% of their income as it stands right now. And there's no record of how it's allocated by the Queen. So it's probably about 2 to 3 million pounds. However, Harry and Meghan's net worth is in the neighborhood of 35 million pounds anyway. 95% of their lifestyle is supported by Charles through the Duchy of Cornwall. That's his private estate. I think Charles is going to continue to support them. So think about this. There's no downside for them. I mean, they're still going to get supported by Charles. I mean, they're giving up this little bit of money for public money. The public is still going to have to pay for their security, whether it's the Brits when they live in the UK, which I believe, we're going to see Meghan at the very minimum, bare minimum.
Right.
She's done with that whole thing.
Yeah.
But Canadians are going to have to pick up the tab for the other part of it. And the costs are going to increase because they're going to be coming back and forth. The Frogmore House, I think, I can see where the Brits are very upset. I mean, they're still going to be paying for that. The renovation, the money that's coming out of the taxpayers' pocket for that is still ongoing. By the time it's done, it's going to be 4 million pounds. What, for a house that someone's going to live in maybe 20 days out of the year?
Right. I agree.
So
yeah.
I think, they've already said we're keeping that residence. I mean, it was the website where they lay it all out, the Sussex Royal website, is really breathtaking in its sort of, I don't want to say arrogance, but, we're going to collaborate with the Queen. You don't collaborate with the Queen. She's the sovereign, and you are a supporting member of the family. So the whole tone of it is quite shocking.
Any truth to Obama and Oprah and a few others being a part of this?
Well, I think I wrote a story in November saying that they were going to visit Oprah on her Montecito ranch. I'd be 99% confident in saying that they have discussed their future plans with Oprah Winfrey. Harry is right now producing a series for Apple TV, a series of mental health documentaries with Oprah. So, I mean, she's their buddy. That's why she was at the wedding. I mean, that came out shortly afterwards. So, I mean, I don't think, they've got Michelle and Barack Obama on speed dial. I do think that they have gotten close to Oprah Winfrey. I mean, why else is Gayle King sort of circling around? It makes no sense. But I'm sure that Oprah, if asked, gave her opinion. She came out and said very cagily, they don't need my help. She didn't say that they didn't ask for it.
Right. Yeah.
So
right.
I'm sure Meghan being Meghan and Harry just sort of wanting to say, okay, let's ask people. I mean, that video of him pitching Meghan on the carpet at the Lion King premiere, poor Bob Iger, he looked stunned. He looked like, what's happening? Okay, yeah, sure. Email me. I'm sure he didn't know what to do. I mean, I know. It's very, God bless them, but it was kind of cringy.
It's so cheesy. The whole thing is so cheesy and cheap. It really, really is. And it could have been something
It's not
so
very
different.
royal.
It's not. We got to go,
royal.
kiddo. We'll finish on that. You'll come back. I hope we'll pick up again on this. I'm sure this is a long way from over. Diane.
No, it's just begun. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you. You're such a joy. It's been swell. Talk to you soon.
All right.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Bye-bye. I've been speaking with royal expert Diane Clehane. Find her on Facebook and Twitter at Diane Clehane and her royal commentary on bestlifeonline.com. Thank you for tuning in to the Halli Casser-Jayne Show, a production of Resec LLC. The Halli Casser-Jayne Show posts new podcasts Wednesdays, 3 p.m. Eastern, and is available at hallicasserjayne.com and on all your favorite apps. Be sure to visit us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and follow me on Twitter at The Halli CJ Show. Until next time, this is Halli Casser-Jayne.